Some people are more patient than others. Sure, we all want to be patient, but as we know, just wanting something to be doesn't make it so, which is sort of the heart of our impatience, isn't it? We have this vision for how we long things to be, how we hope they will be, and the longer it takes to get there, the more impatient we become. Sometimes it's simple. The light turns green and we just want the car in front of us to move. The Zoom meeting begins and we just want everyone to mute. The sermon starts and we just want to get to the end. Other times, our impatience is a little more complex, even understandable, as we wait for that treatment to work, for that call to arrive, for justice to finally be served. In other words, in big ways and small ways, though not all of our impatience is the same, the truth is we all feel it from time to time. It's part of being human. Maybe in the past we could have dealt with our impatience in better ways as we've grown so used to an instant culture. We get instant responses and instant answers, even instant relationships. Just swipe right. But the truth is, every generation has had to face impatience from time to time. And if not conquer it, at least deal with it. Sometimes in good ways, and sometimes not. Just look at our story for today. It's really easy and really tempting to look at these Old Testament stories, these Hebrew Bible stories, and to just turn the page, assuming that they have nothing to do with us. We look down our noses, especially at these really old stories, at how primitive, how simple the people must have been, and then we turn the page, convinced that a golden calf has nothing to do with us. We've got lots of issues, but a golden calf, for most of us, is not one of them. An added challenge to this particular passage is that so many of us hear the story and immediately cut to that scene from Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments, and we're perfectly content to leave it there in the technicolor recesses of our minds. But maybe, friends, just maybe, there's something in this story for us. After all, at its most basic level, this is a story about an impatient people. About a people who longed for something different. Who were looking around their lives and recognizing that they weren't where they longed to be. We know the feeling, don't we? Who among us hasn't had one of those moments in their lives when they've looked in the mirror or looked around their lives and thought, I'm not where I want to be, and thought, why don't I have that job or that life or that relationship or that home or that bank account or that body that I always hoped for? Even if we haven't had that personal experience, certainly we've experienced it collectively, haven't we, in the last few months at least? When the global pandemic began, none of us knew how long it was actually going to last. I can distinctly remember a conversation early on about how we could just get through this so that everyone could be back in the pews by Easter. By Easter. And here we are with Christmas peeking over the horizon, just 74 shopping days left. And there's no end in sight. At first, There was some novelty to the moment. If we weren't on the front lines or sick ourselves, we might have seen this as a much-needed moment to slow down, to take stock, to clean out some of our closets. But friends, our closets have long been clean and dirty again right now, and we are just waiting for this to end. The truth is, we're growing tired. We're tired of our dining rooms serving as our classrooms. We're tired of our bedrooms doubling as our office space. We're tired of people only seeing us through that small little window in Zoom. Frankly, I'm tired of looking at myself in the window. Tired of having to wear a mask. Tired of having to stay away from people I love. So many of us are asking that question that so many children are asking to so many parents through so many tears. When will COVID be over? It's no wonder we're growing a little impatient. The challenge, of course, is to not live there. As we know from past experience, it's not a great frame of mind for decision-making. How many accidents could have been avoided with a little patience? How many broken dreams, wrong turns, false starts could have been avoided with a little patience? The challenge is that we don't know. We're now more than 6 months into this pandemic. 6 months! And there are more than 210,000 people, 210,000 people dead in our own country, and we still have more questions than answers. Will there be a second wave? Will the vaccine arrive safely and effectively? Can we trust our leaders when it does? We don't know. Like the Hebrew people, we know where we long to be. But we're not there yet. For them, they had made their way out of slavery in Egypt, only to find themselves starving in the desert. They had this vision for where they longed to be, a literal promised land, but they couldn't seem to get there. And the longer it took, the more impatient they became. And the more impatient they came, the more desperate they were to hold on, to grasp any easy answer, any quick fix, even any silver bullet that was out there. We know that feeling, don't we? We want whatever the quick fix will be, so that we can just get to the other side of this. We have grown impatient. The Hebrew people were waiting for Moses. Moses had taken them to this mountain, and he was up on the mountain, and they lost track of him. The readers knew he was going to be gone for 40 days, biblical speak for a long time. But it was 40 days after a journey that was already lasting a lot longer than anyone had anticipated. And they were growing impatient. And in their impatience, they started to color their perspective. They could no longer see anything else except what was right in front of them. We know their story. These were they who had found their way out of the desert. God had walked alongside them out of slavery, across the sea on dry land, even provided manna from heaven. In other words, God had actually been tangibly interacting with them in their lives, but they couldn't see it. We get it. Some of us have been in one of those moments when life is so dark, when we are in such a dark place that it doesn't matter how much light is shining around us. We can't see it. Maybe some of us are there now, looking around at what's become of our lives. And not knowing what else to do but to look up and to ask, why? The Hebrew people were angry with God. Maybe we are too. It's nothing new. People have always been a little angry with God from time to time. It's one of the reasons I love the Psalms. In addition to those beautiful psalms of praise and thanksgiving for the wonders of God, we also have these raw, honest psalms of lament, these souvenirs of suffering, these mementos of moments when an ancient person found their life falling apart and all they could do, like us, was to look up and ask, why? Even Jesus turned to a lament psalm when he was at his lowest. Maybe we remember it. Psalm 22, my God, why have you forsaken me? It helps, doesn't it, to get it off our chest? If we don't have a person to share it with, maybe it helps to just tell it to God, to shout, to curse, to scream, to shake our fists, stomp our feet, to yell it out, to cry it out, to let it go before God. Fortunately for us, God can take it. It doesn't matter our anger, our frustration, our cursing, whatever it is that we need to get out, the good news is God can take it. If we know nothing else, it is that our anger, our frustration, our impatience is only surpassed by the grace of God. As Howard Thurman said, we come before God with the smell of life upon us. We don't have to pretend in any way when we step before God. We can just be who we are. If there's no one else in our lives, at least before God, we don't have to pretend. We can actually dig down deep and find what's at the core of that impatience and just shout it out. Not that God can change it. Not always. Sure, logically we know that God is not up there flipping some cosmic switch, good day, bad day. That God's not there just giving us these trials and this moment of tribulation simply because God wants to teach us some cosmic lesson. Sure, there may be a lesson we can learn, but it's not done for that purpose. No, God gives us freedom to live in this world, which means that sometimes bad things are going to happen even to good people, even to people we love. Even to us. There's no promise as a people of faith that bad things aren't going to happen. The promise is that when they do, we won't have to face them alone. And as we know, friends, we can face a lot if we know we don't have to face it alone. Our job is to stand alongside one another to remind each other of that and to keep moving. The Hebrew people grew impatient. And when God wasn't doing what they thought God should do, they replaced God. The best God money could buy. And maybe we've never melted down our jewelry to create a golden calf. But we do know that desperate place, that place where you can just grasp onto anything that even has the remote semblance of life. When we're so desperate for something that we're willing to grab the first thing that we find, it's not a surprise that the opioid crisis has increased exponentially during this time, or that alcohol sales are booming. This is a hard moment, and people are looking for anything that will take away the pain, anything that they can quickly let go of, or a quick fix, even if they know that it won't last. We know what it's like to be in that moment, don't we? To find our way and to find ourselves stuck. Maybe some of us are there now. Good news is we're not alone. The only way through this, friends, is through it. And if that end goal, if that final destination is keeping us from being able to recognize where we are in this moment, right now, today, then maybe it's time to reassess. Maybe it's time to pull back from that end goal and just look at the next right place to put our foot, and to find life in the midst of that. And to trust that if we can focus on this moment and that next right step, then maybe we can find life here. Maybe we can find hope here. Maybe we can find joy here. As Maggie Smith wrote in her brand new, beautiful new book, Keep Moving, do not turn away joy. Even if it arrives at an unexpected and inconvenient time, even if you think you should still be grieving, even if you think it's too soon, joy is always on time. Keep moving. Friends, what if we were to commit to keep moving together? To keep taking that next step, not focusing so much on the final destination, but right now. To be clear, it's okay to be a little impatient with justice in this world. It's okay to be a little impatient for a world that finally looks and acts and feels like we know it could or it can. But if we're so focused on that we can't live in the moment, then we've already lost the final destination. The hope of our faith is that life is always possible right now in this place. The promise of the gospel is that Christ arrives even in the mess. Even when everything else is falling apart, Christ is there to remind us that we're not alone, not to force our feet, but to show us the way. And it's no secret. The way to life is what it has always been. In the high moments and in the low, the way to life is love. Not the cotton candy, sunshine and roses love, but the kind of love that will walk alongside you in a pandemic and never let you forget that you're not alone. The Hebrew people turned to a false idol, and they wasted away in self-indulgence and debauchery. It's so easy to convince ourselves that money or sex or the right job or the right home or the right body will finally make us happy. But we can have all of those things and still be empty. In the end, they're their own golden calves, their own false idols, and all that glitters is not gold. Life is always within our grasp. But we have to sometimes be willing to take a step to reach it. There's so much going on in our world right now that we're ready to let go of. We long for true racial justice. We long for an end to the pandemic. We long for leaders who will tell the truth. And some of us are more impatient than others to get there. But the good news of our faith is that even if we don't reach our destination, we can find life along the way. And if we could hold on to that, friends, then it doesn't matter what tomorrow holds. We will find our way. Let's keep moving. Amen.